everyone. My name is Kanisha Noel Modeste, and I'm a youth counselor here at the Calgary Immigrant Women's Association. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to Collaborative Action Empowering Immigrant Communities Against Gender-Based Violence, an event funded by the Government of Canada through the Ministry of Women and Gender Equality, or WAGE. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we would like to start off the event with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of the peoples of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Piikani, Kainai, the Stoney Nakoda First Nations, Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Wesley, and the Tsuut'ina First Nation. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. In line with the Family Violence Prevention Month, this symposium aims to educate, raise awareness, and explore avenues for collaboration in prevention work, as well as facilitate and enhance a coordinated responsive system. We have quite an event planned for today, and we will start with the opening remarks from our Director of Programs, Celestina Akinkumi, followed by the panel discussion from community leaders and gender-based violence advocates. From our panel discussion, we will learn about the unique experiences and challenges of gender-based violence in immigrant communities. However, before I give the floor to them, here are some housekeeping items. Restrooms. Female washrooms are on the left-hand side of the 6th floor elevator. Male washrooms are on the left-hand side of the 8th floor elevator. Entry codes for both have been posted on the respective doors. In case of a fire, remain calm and start exiting the building from the nearest stairway on either side of the elevators. Remember, do not use the elevators. The designated muster point is Harry Hayes Building South Entrance on 224th Ave Southeast. Alternative assembly point is the parking lot on the north side of the First Street Plaza. Finally, there is a photographer and videographer on site. Some images and videos may be published on social media. If you would prefer not to be included in these photos, please speak to our photographer, Lana Graff. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to invite our Director of Programs, Celestina Akinkumi, to offer a few introductory remarks.
Thank you, Kanisha. Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of our Director of Programs, my name is Fatima Narvaez. I am the Manager of Family Services Department. Welcome to today's event, Empowering Immigrant Communities Against Gender-Based Violence. We are delighted to have you join us today as we come together to address a pressing issue that affects communities worldwide. In the realm of post-COVID-19, we find ourselves in the midst of a shadow pandemic. Statistics Canada reports that 44% of women experience some form of intimate partner violence. The pandemic has exacerbated this issue, with family and gender-based violence on the rise. At CIWA alone, we have seen 50% increase in clients reporting instances of gender-based violence. And as we gather here today to observe Family Violence Prevention Month, our focus is squarely on understanding and addressing gender-based violence in immigrant communities. Through CIWA's project, Collaborative Action, we are working with various sectors in the community to address the gaps in services for immigrant women and establish meaningful gender-based violence prevention and intervention resources. And today, we are here to learn from the different perspectives of our panel speakers, who will share their personal knowledge and expertise on the intersections of race, religion, gender, immigration status, and violence. Today, we would like to encourage everyone in the community to take some time to do these 3 things. 1, learn about the issue of gender-based violence, domestic, family, and intimate partner violence. 2, discover available resources in our community that can provide support. And 3, become advocates and champions in our communities, actively working to combat gender-based violence. On behalf of CIWA, I want to express our sincere gratitude to each of you for your presence here today. Your participation in this event signifies a significant step towards positive change, and we appreciate your commitment. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Fatima, for your inspiring words and call to action. It's true, everyone here today embodies the spirit of champions. And now I would like to invite one of our family counselors and case managers, Jumana Bastwala, to moderate the much awaited discussion with our panelists for today.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. Today, we will be discussing the unique challenges and experiences of gender-based violence in immigrant and refugee communities. To begin this conversation, I will hand it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. Could each of you kindly share your name, your role, and a bit background highlighting your experience and passion for advancing gender justice? Can I start with you, June, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Jumana. And I'm June Naraval. I am the Programs and Policy Manager with Action Dignity. And I would like to say that I'm also like a newcomer. I came in here at the middle of the pandemic in May 2020. But prior to my work with Action Dignity, I used to head an international organization back in Kuala Lumpur for Southeast and South Asia on gender, sexuality, reproductive health, and rights. And I think I was formed by a lot of women in my life, my mother in particular, my sisters too. But a lot of feminist women back in Davao kind of like really influenced me to be who I am now. My ways of being and my ways of doing had been largely influenced by these women. And I started my journey with technically like a very physical journey in a long 9-hour trip because they requested me if I can take on the medical conditions of women in a very far, far flung area. They promised me that it's a 3-hour trip, but it was an exponential 3-hour trip. It became 9, and I started my engagement with women, and there I realized how uniquely women are marginalized in many ways because of the intersections of a lot of inequalities from age, from ability, but at the same time also patriarchy. So that kind of like started my journey. And maybe just to say, as a last point, is that the one that really enveloped me into this is I was commissioned by one university in the Philippines to do the first ever study on marital conflicts and domestic violence in the Philippines, which was published and now became the basis of a movement called Men's Responsibilities in Gender Development. And after 20 years, it has now become into a law in Davao. So that's probably what I want to say. Sorry if it's a bit longish.
For sharing that.
Hello, my name is Soraya. I'm a registered social worker and a remote caseworker for NISA Homes. At NISA Homes, we are a transitional home for Muslim women and non-Muslim women. And we support women who are fleeing domestic violence, who are seeking refugee, and who are experiencing poverty. What brought me to this role actually, in the Muslim and Arab community, there are many factors that have contributed to gender-based violence, and I have seen it firsthand and from personal and professional experiences. And so that's kind of what shaped my work and, trying to challenge these and dismantle all these factors and working towards a gender-based free society.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for being here. Mo, would you like to go next?
Yes. My name is Mo, and I am the owner of Jabari Cleaning Services, which is a commercial and residential cleaning service here in Canada. I am also the founder of Jabari International, which is a non-profit for mental health that operates in Lesotho, which is my country of origin. So what brings me here is that in my first year in Canada, I found myself having to go live in a women's shelter. And the help I got there inspired me to stop studying economics and go into psychology and sociology. And from living in a shelter, I ended up working in a shelter. And unfortunately, due to COVID and being a single mom, I had to stop. And that's when I started the nonprofit and the cleaning business.
Yes, Raphael, you're next.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful introduction, my fellow panelists. My name is Raphael. I am from West Africa, Nigeria to be precise. I've been here 18 years, and 13 of those years was spent in construction industry. After a family incident that left me almost homeless, as well as workplace injuries that left me jobless at the same time, I decided to go back to school in 2017. I did study a Bachelor's of Human Resources and Labor Relations. After that, as we all know, the COVID-19 hit. Being not a corporate guy and having no experience with soft skills, I had to pursue my master's in counseling psychology with Yorkville University. What kind of brought me to this role was I have, like you, faced family violence firsthand as a male though, which I might be bringing my perspective to that aspect today. And then 17 years of my life in Calgary, I didn't know that Center for Newcomers existed. So during my quest to do practicum, I had to do some research. I actually found CIWA, and I also applied at Center for Newcomers, but they called me first. So, after serving there, I was working with the Therapy and Support Center, where we treat provincial family and family violence program treatment. So I do run men's group who have also been involved in family violence, both the victims and also the perpetrators. I also run individual counseling. So right now, after my practicum, they retain me as a youth worker, youth counselor, as well as a family violence counselor. So I'm hoping that this experience today will kind of shed some light into some of the issues we immigrants as well as some Canadians face when it comes to gender-based violence. And I hope to learn a lot from you all. I am not here as an expert, but as a learner as well. So thank you for welcoming me.
Thank you so much, and it is with immense pleasure that I welcome you all today, and I'm thrilled to learn from each one of you. So now let's dive in straight to the questions. I can start with you, June, if that's okay, just the order that you're sitting in. According to you, what cultural values, beliefs, or practices within your community may unintentionally contribute to gender-based violence?
Question. It is already a recognized fact that culture influence gender-based violence or shape the ways of our being and the ways of our doing, and that every culture would have a different, like cultural traits based on groups, race, or social, like social grouping would have different ways of traits and different ways of, they have different norms. And somehow these influence also on gender-based violence, particularly in societies, and which most of the societies, by the way, that are very patriarchal. And so you would see how men's superiority over the others would also be enforced in the way of relations. So that really is a very important driver for gender-based violence, like men being expected to be the decision maker, the head of the family, or the disciplinarian in the family are extended, and sometimes, most of the time, would result to domestic violence. But where I want to drive is that the like the personal and the interpersonal cultural ways of doing things are something that we get to see like an iceberg. It's at the tip of it. But what we are not seeing are the salient points, salient traits that are actually embedded below that iceberg, and that most of this also translates into the different conditions that we see in the community around systems and structures. We see patriarchy being embedded and integrated in our policies. And if you look at our organizations, whether that be for domestic violence, gender-based violence, or even other service providers, the way their practices are also influenced by these very patriarchal culture. And then I think it's very important for us to look at beyond the culture, or in addition to culture, would be what are the conditions in our community and in our society that actually hold that gender-based violence in place, that seems to glue it so that it persists, or something that is almost like embedded, that it's so difficult to push unless if you address the root causes. And patriarchy being embedded in our practices, in our policy, in the decision making, even in the resource flow. I don't think if a lot of the organizations, women organization, particularly the ethnocultural community women's organization, are receiving funds. Our study with 60 organizations would bear and show that almost 65% of volunteer organizations never receive any funding at all for the last 2 years. And this is, part of that culture, part of that thinking, part of that belief that are really enforced, that would somehow limit the kind of work, the work that we should be doing in the community. And then you have also our women in the table of decision making. Are women also relating, how are the dynamics working around women? These are all informed, shaped by culture, but also by the deeply rooted patriarchal ways. And that, I think, I would like to say that culture influence, but I think we really need to look very closely what are the conditions in the systems that really hold this problem or glue this problem in place.
Right. And thank you for sharing that, because you've also mentioned that it's not just at a grassroots or a micro level, right? It's at the meso and macro, at the systemic level, that kind of also trickles down to how we as people interpret culture, right?
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much.
So in the Arab and Muslim community, there are a lot of, factors that contribute to gender-based violence. And a lot of the things that we've been seeing is that, as June mentioned, there's a patriarchy system in the families, and this is something that has always been in place and continues to be in place today. Along with that, there are, expectations from all genders. And so the male is always expected to be the breadwinner, and the female is expected to stay home. And like, even as a child myself, I was always told like, oh, you don't need university, like you're gonna have kids and sit at home. And although I do like to sit at home, it's not something that's, that I would, it's not something that I think is the best way to go about it. Like, there's just many factors that fall into this, and we're all expected to do certain things in these households, and honoring the family and shame and all these things kind of take in. Women are not allowed to do many things that men are allowed to do, and not only this, but like Islamically, many men tend to interpret the Quran in different ways, and there are many ways that we can interpret them, but this is kind of where the imams and the leaders have a big say in this. And so it's just a really there's just many different variety factors that fall into this and contribute to it, and they all intersect in different ways, and that's where we have to really dismantle them and move away from binary thinking.
Right, and I really liked when you talked about the burden and the responsibilities and roles that each gender has, and sometimes even working through what the burden could be for men to be that masculine, to be that breadwinner, and still be an immigrant, and have their challenges as being a newcomer, right? So thank you for shedding light on that. Yes, Mo.
Yes. So in my community too, men are the heads of the family, and that really places a lot of responsibility on them. And bear in mind that these are the people that when they're growing up, they are not really taught to express themselves. If someone does something to them at school, they have to go deal with it. They don't cry, they don't show any emotion, they have to be tough. Now you have this person that was never really taught to express themselves having to become a leader of a family. So you can just imagine, like, when they get frustrated, communication is not going to be the first thing that comes to mind, right? Because they were not taught how to do so. They deal with their problems. So sometimes they look at whoever they're staying with and deal with them because that's their problem and that's what they've been taught. On the other hand, you have women too who were taught that marriage is an achievement. You need to get married to be respected in the community. So even if you're seeing red flags, you don't want to be the last one to leave in your age group, the last one getting married. So you too, you are not educated much because they were pushing for boys to get more educated. So you need to get married, so even if you might see signs here and there that this might not work, but at least you're not going to embarrass your family and not get married. So you go in there, you get married, you have this guy too, he has his issues, and then now you move to another country, where now there's places like CIWA. I can get more help, maybe more than him, and I might end up having to provide while he tries to look for a job, and chances are he's not going to get what he used to have back home. So now I'm the one coming in with the food from the food bank that CIWA has given to me, and he's sitting there helplessly. So you can just imagine what that does. So I feel like that's one of the things that really contribute, like putting so much responsibility on men, and also, with women feeling like they need to be married, they need to belong to someone so that they represent their family well.
Well, thank you, Mo. And that also kind of links to what June had brought up, because it's the systemic, it's the community at large that puts that pressure of maybe isolating that woman for speaking up or for not taking a stand and for following what the social norms are of the community, right? So, thank you.
Thank you all for your wonderful insights. You have brought the patriarchal side of it, and I appreciate you all sharing the light about how the society would have molded everyone, especially men, to be the breadwinner and women to be, home care, taking care of the elderly, the children, and all whatnot. I want to touch base on the cultural aspect of it as well. Coming from Nigeria and being raised by a mother too, who my dad left early enough, I was taught that family are not to be left alone, especially women are not to leave their families, men are not to leave their families for whatever reason. So culturally based, like you said, it's a stigma for a woman to leave their family behind. And even when they're facing some kind of challenges, being violated, just because of the stigma that they've left their husbands and children, they will not be able to interact with another man or another woman because now they have this stigma and they're being pathologized because of that. How does that affect me growing up as a guy? I also know and learn that whatever is happening in my family, I should not leave my family. I should not leave that marriage. And then, because if I do, then I'm not representing what I have learned as a kid. Now, that cultural aspect of my life is also jeopardizing my own well-being. Like I said earlier, I suffered family violence. Again, with respect to the other partner, though, or my ex, I'm not trying to put her under the bus, but I neglected a lot of things that I should have caught early enough, because I just wanted to keep a family. However, when I couldn't handle it anymore, then that's when things got out of hand, and then you end up replicating generations of family violence. If I ended up staying, perhaps I may not be where I am today, or I would have been dead, or I probably would have been in jail somewhere if I had raised my hand, as many of us do as men. Thank God that day I was able to find a way to get out. And again, most men, because we're men, like you said, we're raised not to cry, not to share emotions. We're not able to pick up the phone call and make a call as to if we're being violated. Because again, not to dispute the 44% of women that are being violated each year, but men too suffer some family violence, and sometimes they're not able to speak up because of what you have just shared, that we're not allowed to show emotions. So culturally and then religiously as well, being a Catholic, they try to hold family together. So that has impacted some of us, and we continue to stay in relationships where it's not favorable for us.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm glad that all these are emerging, and then I understand, how important culture is in shaping, in terms of the gender-based violence. What are the expectations for women, and what are the expectations for men? But I also see, beyond just the culture, is to look into some intersections of inequalities, because these inequalities, they are like tsunami. Just imagine if you are a newcomer, an immigrant, and you are a single mother, and you are a Muslim, and you don't know, you have a probably low, you don't have the Canadian education. So these actually compound the problem of gender-based violence. And I see how important it is for service providers or for natural support like us to understand culture, because it shapes the way we relate, and it becomes very human. Our ways of engaging them becomes very human, because we understand from their lens how the situation that they are in, and what are the expectations of the families, the communities, and the society in general. So when women who are in the cycle of domestic violence remain in that relationship, it's not a simple answer. It's very complicated. It's very nuanced, and there are a lot of reasons why they stay. So it's important to understand that culture, but also to understand where uniquely this person is even more marginalized. If you are a Muslim, if you are single, just imagine it. Or if you are probably a newcomer, or probably you have disability, this actually shapes again how gender-based violence would compound it in a way that there can be no single way of handling gender-based violence. There are several ways of doing it based in the context, tailor-fitting it to the tsunamis that this woman might be experiencing. And so at the end of it, I know that we both are in the engaging men. What I truly believe is that feminist approaches are really good for men, because it also, put out the burden from the shoulder of expectations, of what a man should be. I have had conversation with about 25 men in the last 3 months, and there has been a lot of expressions of how burdened they are of the society, of the family, and the societal prescriptions of what it is to be a man. I think both men and women would like to have a safe space, we just need to bring them to that safe space, and tools are really necessary, and practices are really essential.
Thank you for that insight, because very often we start looking at things in silos, and it is important, because it is such a complex topic, that we understand and look at the intersectionality of different identities that a person might hold and what those barriers could be. So I really appreciate you bringing that. And you did highlight about, both you and Raphael work with men and boys. So my question is just if for everybody, how do you think then can we, because that is the focus right now, that we also need to work with men, and we need to work with looking at the whole picture, right? Because they are part of that, the issue as well. We need to engage men and boys to be allies. How do you think we can do that within immigrant communities then? How do we engage men and boys effectively?
Thank you for that question. You wanna like answer it first, or I do? Okay. No. As I have said, feminism is really good for men. I thought that that would be a good medicine, and something that we should take on, because it releases men from all the prescriptions that we have on expectations. And as I have said, some of these expectations, being the breadwinner, so they have to have double, triple jobs. Being a disciplinarian means that you have to shout or to spank, like your children, or probably slap your wife. I'm sorry for being so graphic. I don't mean to really create an unsafe space, but this is what I'm hearing from men, that they also wanted to change. They wanted to be a good father to their children. They wanted to be a loving mother, but that's not what is being expected of them, expected of us. And it is very important that we need to integrate also engaging men as an important strategy of women's organization to have a more gender transformative programming. I am scared if the central focus is really just providing men's, engaging men as an entity coming from, like a vacuum, without really linking it to the more essential strategies too on empowering women. And what I'm trying to say is that we need to integrate engaging men, but it needs to be also approached in a more transformational way, that women's organization are also at the at the heart of it. They are also being engaged at the at the personal, interpersonal, at the organizational level, at the societal level, but even in terms of policy and systems change in legislative agenda. So I feel very strongly that when we talk about men, which is really essential, the clarion call for engaging men stem from the fact that you would have a lot of men would be the perpetrators. We never use perpetrators back in the Philippines for engaging men. They are the source of violence. They are, and that it's very sad, but we have an emerging phenomenon too of men being the victims of violence. Either way, I feel that I strongly believe that men should be engaged in the process. The first understanding in the research that we had back in the Philippines and even here in Calgary would seem to point out that there is not a common understanding of what domestic violence is as defined by men, because this is extended as a part of their role as a disciplinarian. And so it's very important really to put out there that there is a universality in terms of the definition of what the gender-based violence, what domestic violence is, because there's a tendency that this is denied, that this is minimized, that this is justified, that this is rationalized. And when we fall into that, I think we will be in a trap that men would not be able to be a good contributor to how we want to see a more transformative gender programming in Calgary or in our community.
Thank you so much for that insight on how can we better move forward without re-stigmatizing or labeling men uh, based on their culture or their understanding of how they need to behave or perform as a member of the family. Your take on that?
I definitely agree with June. I've never really thought of, using a feminist approach when working with men. Because my work for the past year and a half has been specifically with women. I did work with men back a few years when I was co-facilitating the mandated Become a Better You program. It was mandated counseling. And so interacting with the men, you could really feel the tension, and that they were not provided with all the resources that a woman would be provided with. And so I do definitely think that there is a lack of resources for men. And, identifying the different theories and approaches that we could use when working with men is extremely crucial, because it's not really, it was never really something that I thought of, because all my work is with women, but I definitely do agree with June.
And it's interesting because it opens our mind, right? Because if you're looking at it, it's not in isolation. It's a family. It consists of two people, and you know, as you mentioned, both need the same amount of services and support to make sure that the next generation has a better understanding of, what GBV is even.
It's so true. So those who say that the newer generation are more receptive to a very egalitarian relationship. And I think we need to start the investments in terms of really, like bringing into more resources, not only to men, but also to boys. I think it's very important that as early as as early as they can understand that they are exposed to positive masculinity, as we want to say that, so that this becomes their way of being and their way of doing things.
Thank you.
I think we need to approach men more from a place of curiosity than judgment. Because if we look at them and think this was once somebody's son, like, when kids are growing up, like, you attend to them the same way. When a boy child cries, you attend to them. When a girl cries, you attend to them. At what point in raising boys do we start saying, stop crying, toughen up? And why do we do that? Because I feel like if we were to look at these men that we feel like are violent in everything, we might see that maybe, just maybe, that's their sadness now that was untreated turning into anger, and they're putting it out there. So I feel like if we, like, whenever we see them, a woman comes, to help that woman, it would help to think of what happened to that guy, because I don't think any normal person enjoys making another person miserable. You must be going through something yourself to want to harm another person. So if we were to ask ourselves, what happened to him? What can we do to hold space for him? Because if we leave them like that, we're going to help her, but I'm going to fall for him too. and he's gonna do the same thing. So yes, we are helping women, but sometimes I feel like if we were to try and hold space for men and try and not say, because even when we say GBV, the first thing that comes to mind is women being abused. That's why you won't see a lot of men in this room, because it's either, why are you there? Is it because you're going through it, or or you don't want to come because you're like, oh, they're gonna be ganging up on us again. So I feel like if we were to look at them from that lens, where we're like, he was a boy at some point, something must have happened to make him this angry. How can we help him so that we get to help all the girls that he's gonna deal with later on? We would have really helped out a lot.
That's such a great point. I really loved it, right? That you mentioned about curiosity and not of judgment. Because we mostly, even if we don't want to, there is that sense of judgment of what they've done, potentially, but there's not enough time that we go back into that reflective piece of what are the challenges that that person has experienced to reach where they have reached. So I agree that we need to create that space to be able to have those conversations and not isolate them further by labeling them or naming them, where they can access services as well. So thank you.
Such a great conversation. You mentioned at what point should we start teaching children, men, how to be empathic. My fellow man here also pointed to collaboration, engaging them in policy making, and I think that's very important, that we listen to their voices, especially even women are not even included in the policy making of what concerns them most times. So it's unfortunate that it's we men making a lot of decisions as to what happens to women. What about boys? I have two boys myself, 11 and 13 now, and I started raising them from 5 and 7. I have been able, by the grace of God, to teach them to, show empathy, listen, be able to observe, be able to engage in house chores, clean. I cook for them. I do everything that it is that is supposedly supposed to be women's job. And I also live with my aging mother, who I also take care of. And watching me, I think they started to realize how important it is to be able to take care of women, as well as take care of their external relationship out there, and be able to observe and listen to what it is that is concerning to not just little boys, little girls, as well as the entire generation coming up.
Thank you, Raphael. And that's, sometimes kids, the best way to learn is by doing it for them, right? As opposed to telling them what to do. So if you're a role model, automatically they will follow that path of being empathetic and being kind and understanding in that sense of their own responsibilities and being equal partners when they grow up. Yeah.
Starting to see some positive implications of this when they go over to their mothers now. That relationship is gone from what I considered bad to worse, to the extent that she can call me and I can call her. We can actually talk about the things that are happening in our families with regards to children. Now we're replicating. If they go to bed here at 10 o'clock, that is what is happening there. We both engage in their extracurricular activities. We make decisions as to what happens to the kids together, having that meaningful conversation and putting all the differences aside. And that way they now know that, okay, there is no gender-based inequality here. It's all about what is best for the society as well as our family.
And I would love to keep asking you questions because it's super interesting to hear your take. But I want to leave some time for the audience to ask you a few questions. So if Kanisa can just take the mic. And if anybody has questions, please feel free to ask the panelists. Thank you.
Hi, my name is. Hello? Yeah. Hi, my name is Carolina. Based on my own experience, how can somebody that doesn't have the education about what the dependence and the emotional dependence that the cycle of abuse can create, can even start to think, I have to leave this situation? In my own experience, I didn't know, and and I have friends right now, and I try to uh, provide resources and even help them because I help legally. However, they are not. They seem to be blinded or not wanting to recognize the signs of abuse. So how can you provide to these women that they will just put like a wall and not let you in? How can you provide that help?
That is such a great question. Where I work right now at the Center for Newcomers, we run both women and men's group of family violence programs. This not only deal with people who are already in the system or already mandated to do the program, it also creates awareness where we teach what family violence is. We do anger management, boundary settings, of which a lot of people find it very difficult to even set boundaries between them and their mothers, spouses, children. We teach all that. We talk about stress management. We talk about family support systems. So she can, if you can refer them to us, and it's free. It is governed by and sponsored by the provincial of Abara, I believe. They can come there. It's a 13 session, and if they're not mandated, they can just attend the sessions that they need. And we also provide individual counseling, which we call general counseling, where a woman too will be able to help them. I think CIWA also has something like that. Again, it's not always easy to get them to go to counseling because it's pathologizing. If they're coming from Africa, where I'm from, where mental health is trivialized, if you talk about mental health, they think you're crazy. But creating the awareness, perhaps connecting them with someone who's already been in that system, who knows about the program, can also help them, getting them. As soon as they get in there, they start to see the benefit, and that's what I have noticed so far.
Be important to really, for us, friends, neighbors, family members, what might be very important to always, consider is that it will take a lot of time for any women to, in the cycle of domestic violence, to make a decision. And back in the Philippines, studies would show that it will take 7 years before most women in domestic violence would be able to really look at it as a domestic violence and make a decision. And so for friends, for families, and for neighbors, it is very important to be consistent, to really reach out, consistent to provide information, consistently holding them whenever they are in their lowest points, and never make any judgment at all. So that that communication continues to be, so that when they are able to see that as a domestic violence, and when they are able to have the courage to make a decision, you are there to provide them where they should go. I think that's very essential, the more practical. There are a lot of cases back in the Philippines. I'm not directly involved here, but back in the Philippines I was. And even the closest of my relatives, my sister, for example, when her youngest graduated from a medical degree, what I heard her saying was, now I can divorce your father. So she must have holding on to that for a very long time until the youngest will be able to get a degree. And I think you should be there at the right time. But not just at the right time, even in the investments of always continually being there.
Enough of what I explained earlier, and thank you for bringing that up. What holds women back in the relationship? What holds men back? And how do you identify those things? How do you help them to identify it?
Yes, because what I did was for me, it was like I was blind
Mhm.
to that situation, and then cruel things were done to me, and I still wanted to keep my family together.
Exactly, because of your origin, because of what you were taught, and stigma around it. Yeah.
My question, and a little bit frustrates me because I see friends going through it. Is how can I open their eyes as my eyes were open, right?
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, like he said. Sometimes it takes time for them to realize that this is not good for me, but until they perhaps experience it worse, and then, yeah.
Talk a bit about it. So it's really hard. It's not like, I used to say like, why don't you just leave? But it's not easy. It's not just like, why don't you just leave and just walk away, right? Many people rely on their partner for, they don't work or they take care of the children. There's no income, there's no education. So that could be a lot of factors of why they don't leave. And like June said, like, the cycle of domestic violence, there is a cycle and it's hard to break it. But I think the best advice is to keep, providing those resources, because if they don't reach out in a week, they might in a month. And if they don't in a month, they might in a year. Sometimes it's really hard and people don't seek help or ask for support, as soon as they could. But as long as we're providing these resources, then we just hope that one day they will reach out and we can assist them further.
Yeah, I think what I can say is that you continue loving your friend. You continue supporting her, reminding her of her self-worth. Later on, if you keep affirming her, checking on her, and reminding her and letting her know what she is worth, that will one day open her eyes and she will leave. Because telling her to leave is not going to do it, but just show her what love is, support her, hold space for her. And when the time is right and she knows her worth, she will step out of that relationship.
I kind of wanted to ask, when people want to leave, right? Somebody here stated that men do not have, I haven't seen shelter for men. We have center for women here, and you stated that you lived there. Perhaps some of these women, when they think of where to go when they leave, they're thinking of the living condition around those places. Can you share with us how was it for you there to be able to know if it is a step that they would want to take? Because if a woman or a man is going to leave a place of comfort to another place that is not comfortable, sometimes they decide to, stay where they are because they don't know what they're going to see.
Well, I had a very good experience. My experience was so good. I had a very good counselor that before I left, I was already studying psychology and sociology because of the good treatment I got. Like, sometimes I look back at that life and I'm like, wow, that was the life, because you do have the support, like you can literally just get out of your room and go downstairs and there's a counselor waiting to talk to you. So I feel like it's scary. Even for me to leave, it was scary. But after I did it, and because you leave with just your kids and your bags, you don't even have a spoon, so you're like, okay, where am I going? But the support you get from a shelter and the love and just seeing other women around you also, like, where you get to discuss stuff, you support each other, you help each other look for jobs. It's like, I wouldn't encourage people, don't get me wrong, don't leave your homes and go to a shelter, but that place is one of those places that I would say, that was a fun place to live in. But don't leave, please.
Space that you needed at the time.
yes, the safe space and the support, and
That you needed.
yeah, feeling like I belong, because most women that were there to kind of, they've gone, it's not the same but similar, so I feel like I had people that can relate to what I've been through.
Yeah, and I think it's something that you can also say, okay, I have heard from someone who was there, and it's not a horrible place. It's a place, these are the support systems that surround there. That way they can start to envisage what might happen after.
Thank you so much for the question. I think we will move now to the next part of our event. On behalf of CIWA and everyone in the community, I would like to thank all our panelists for being here today. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights on this issue. And please accept a small token of our appreciation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jumana, and all the panelists for sharing your wisdom with us. We appreciate the time you all took to be here today. We recognize the widespread impact of gender-based violence and the particular vulnerabilities of immigrant and refugee women. This is why our collective action as a community is vital. Addressing gender-based violence is not a task for a single organization or sector. It requires a united effort from all corners of our community: education, healthcare, settlement, anti-violence services, and faith and cultural groups to eradicate violence and build safe, inclusive, and equitable communities. The resource booths presented here today are a powerful testament to the ongoing work in our community. They highlight the breadth of support available and the need for everyone's involvement to make this a truly collaborative effort. As we conclude this event, let's commit to working together, to sharing resources and knowledge, and to support those affected by gender-based violence in our communities. Your participation and support are crucial in this work. Thank you for being part of this important journey towards creating a safer and stronger community where everyone, including immigrant and refugee women, can live without fear of violence. Before we open up the resource booths, we want to take a brief moment to introduce our colleague Ivana, who will discuss a gender-based violence initiative she's working on at CIWA and guide us through a short breathing exercise.
Thank you, Kanisha. Good afternoon. My name is Ivana Kalina, coordinator of the Social Recovery and Wellbeing for Immigrant Women project here at CIWA. So the initiation of the project in June 2022 marked a significant moment in CIWA's effort in supporting immigrant women affected by family violence and mental health challenges due to the impact of the COVID-19. This transformative initiative was based on a service delivery model that seamlessly combines technology and mindfulness principles, practices, and attitudes. Embarking on a 2-year journey in collaboration with our partner, Alberta Mindfulness Association, the project aspires to support the recovery of immigrant women navigating difficulties from gender-based violence and mental health adversity. Throughout the 2-year project, we have conducted the following activities: delivered of mindfulness training workshops, an 8-week series designed to empower participants with mindfulness skills and help regulate difficult emotions, improve communication in their lives, and increase sleep quality. Over 60 clients and 20 of the staff went through the training so far, and we are still working on it. Constructed, another component of the program is the Mindfulness Hut. Those are the 2 rooms here present at CIWA in partnership with Alberta Mindfulness Association that are equipped with audio-visual integrations to facilitate mindfulness activities and bolster counseling services that we closely work with. So we're going to play a little video clip because the picture says the 1,000 words, but even the video shows even more. So let's just see a video clip about the Mindfulness Hut.
Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are your thoughts racing too often? Do your emotions feel too much at times? The Mindfulness Hut can help. My name is Amy from CIWA. The Mindfulness Hut is a private space that fuses together modern technology and the classic mindfulness strategies to help soothe your emotional overwhelm. CIWA's Mindfulness Hut is equipped with a massage chair and the surround the floor to ceiling visual aids that complement guided meditation practice. The massage chair helps you relax and really tune into your body, and the visual aids mimic the exposure to nature as you follow along a guided meditation. Our clients have shared that by using the Mindfulness Hut, they feel less anxious and less stressed. By practicing meditation, their sleeping quality also improved. If you are going through a lot of stress, let us help you to find the stillness through mindfulness. Book an appointment to access this amazing hut today. We are here to support you.
So the next slide will show us a little testimonials that we recently received after we finished the 4th cohort of our mindfulness training series workshop. So one of our participants was saying, "This wonderful experience could not have come at better time in my life. I really needed guidance, empathy, and new skills when dealing with overwhelming everyday emotions. The skills learned during this training that are useful, simple, and can be applied in everyday life. I now feel so much better, strong, empowered, and in control. I have not only learned new skills, but I have learned how to practice and incorporate them into my everyday life. So much knowledge and insight into my own life experiences and well-being. I truly hope this type of training continues on for a long time." So it's just a glimpse of the testimonials that we are receiving throughout our program. So right now, I would like to invite you to practice something together. So they always say that the breathing is the essential for our existence. So let's just engage together in a breathing exercise. So I would like to invite you to be aware of your bodies, how you sit, what is your posture. Allow your feet to gently touch the floor. Find a place for your arms beside your body or in your lap, whatever makes you comfortable. If that makes you comfortable to close your eyes, go ahead and do that. So I'll describe what we're gonna do together. We're gonna inhale and count to 4, hold our breath and count to 4, exhale, then count to 4, and hold our breath again and count to 4. And we're gonna do that together 3 times. Ready? Inhale, hold, exhale, and hold. Inhale again, hold, exhale, and hold. Last time. Inhale, hold, exhale, and hold. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, Ivana, for sharing information about your wonderful initiative. Once again, thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon, for making it a priority to learn about the issues and resources related to domestic, family, and gender-based violence. I would like to take this moment to thank Women and Gender Equality Canada for funding this initiative, all our panel presenters, Soraya Khalil, June Naravel, Raphael Ugobi, and Mo Ndlovu, all the wonderful agencies that are here today with the many resources they have to offer: Action Dignity, Center for Newcomers, CPSG Muscan, NISA Foundation, Rowan House, SAGES, and our Visual Voices Youth. Gil Nagai and his team from Day One Media, who is always keen to help promote violence prevention. Our CIWA team for all kinds of support to execute this event. We will now move to the next part of our event, the Munch and Learn. In just a moment, our lovely volunteers will be putting some food and refreshments out. Please take this opportunity to connect, explore the resource booths, and meet our fantastic community partners who also provide services for those impacted by family violence. Thank you all for being champions.